How to troubleshoot backend application deployment failures. If you have ever faced issues while deploying backend applications, you know how frustrating it can be. Let's talk about how to troubleshoot those deployment failures effectively. Understanding the deployment process is key. It usually involves building the application, transferring it to a server or cloud platform, and starting the application processes. Failures can occur at any of these stages, so having a systematic approach is essential. Start by checking the deployment logs and runtime logs. These logs provide detailed information about errors that may have occurred during the build or rollout phases. You might see messages about missing dependencies or script failures. If the deployment times out, it could mean that the application does not have enough central processing unit or memory resources allocated. Adjusting the instance size or resource allocation can often resolve these issues. Next, verify that all application components and dependencies are correctly configured and compatible. Dependency conflicts are a common cause of deployment failures. Make sure that your configuration files, such as package manifests or dependency lock files, are up to date and consistent with the deployed code. Testing the build locally before deployment can help catch these issues early. It is also important to check the source code repository settings. Ensure that the branch and repository URL are correct. If you are trying to deploy from a deleted or renamed branch, the process will fail. Confirm that your deployment configuration points to the right branch and repository. Network and content distribution issues can also lead to deployment failures, especially when using cloud hosting platforms. Ensure that the deployment client or server has proper network access. Also, check that your application content is correctly distributed to the necessary servers or distribution points. When using build tools or package managers, such as Node Package Manager or Composer, avoid committing generated folders like node modules or vendor to the repository. These folders should be generated during the build process on the server. Including them can lead to build errors. If a deployment fails, it is wise to restore a previous stable build to minimize downtime. Then, take a methodical approach to investigate the issue. Review the logs, try to reproduce the problem, and isolate whether the failure is due to back-end code, third-party application programming interfaces, or environment differences. Troubleshooting back-end deployment failures involves several steps. First, review detailed deployment and runtime logs to identify error messages. Ensure that sufficient server or cloud resources are allocated. Verify that dependency versions and configuration files are correct and consistent. Confirm that your source repository and branch settings are accurate. Avoid committing generated build artifacts to the repository. Check network and content distribution configurations. Lastly, restore a stable build to maintain uptime while diagnosing issues. By following these steps, you can systematically identify and resolve deployment problems. This makes back-end development and deployment more accessible and straightforward for everyone involved.